While legendary Pokemon can be hard to get because of low catch rates, mythical Pokemon are hard to get because oftentimes they're not even in the game when you play it. Most of them are only obtainable through events, unless you cheat. Now, some mythical Pokemon were given in-game locations and were even made permanently available at those locations in remakes, but others never even had an obtainable location and remain strictly distribution event only to this day. So I'm Shiro, and we're going to hop into an alternate Pokemon world where we can totally give in-game locations to these mythicals. Let's dive in. For Jirachi's location, it would be a third bottom floor in Meteor Falls. It has a shy disposition, and it is said to envelop itself with a tough crystalline shell while it sleeps, so I assume that it would want to dwell in a more closed area rather than an open one, like mountains. Now, why Meteor Falls? Well, Jirachi is based on the concept of wishing upon a star, or the practice of making a wish while observing meteors in the night sky. We can also see star-like influences within its body, so with these connections and everything else in mind, I believe that this location would be appropriate. Also, let's keep in mind that all chosen locations in this video, including this one, would be accessible post-game. For Manaphy and Fion, it's worth noting that they do have an obtainable location in Legends Arceus, but we're going to try to find one for modern day Sinnoh. So Manaphy's location, or the location of its egg, would be underwater in the sea between Canalave and the Northwest Islands. I chose this area because it seems to be the largest body of water in Sinnoh, that we can see from the town map at least. Given its heavy relation to the sea, its basis on a sea angel, and being referred to as the Prince of the Sea, I figured that the underwater area of the largest body of water in Sinnoh I could find would be the rightful location. But you're probably wondering how you would get there since you can't use dive in Sinnoh. Well, let's just say that after you beat the league, Sailor Eldritch, the guy that takes you to Iron and Full Moon Island, also built a submarine. And since he recognizes your strength, he ends up taking you underwater to find Manaphy. For Fion, you would be able to breed the Manaphy you found with a Diddle to get it, just like the actual method. For Genesect, I think it would make sense for it to be found in the P2 laboratory, specifically in Black 2 and White 2, and maybe in a bottom floor there. If you click on the memo on the desk, it reveals that an experiment occurred where a resident was hired by Team Plasma to create the strongest Pokemon, but the resident was stopped by N. Furthermore, if you receive Genesect from its distribution event and entered the lab with it in your party, a scientist will appear surprised that you have the Pokemon of the cancelled project he was working on. So it's like Genesect was definitely meant to be here, yet it is not, likely due to the fact that N stopped the experiment. And that's why I mentioned that Genesect would be here in the sequel games. Let's say that Team Plasma tried to give the experiment another go, and this time you would stop them, capturing Genesect in the process. Diancie would be located in the Glittering Cave, specifically in an extended room within the Deep Cave area. I think Diancie and this cave share a connection because we can see that crystals make a strong presence within both of them. Now, another location that might have worked was the Reflection Cave, especially because Carbink, a Pokemon that Diancie is heavily associated with, could be found in there, but not in the Glittering Cave. But I still chose the Glittering Cave for two reasons. The first one has to do with the surrounding areas. The Reflection Cave is surrounded by a route and a city, while the Glittering Cave is basically a dead end. I figured that a more secluded location would be more appropriate for a legendary or a mythical, just like how Mewtwo could be found deep within the Pokemon village in the same region. The second reason has to do with features. The Reflection Cave seems to put more emphasis on its mirrors than its crystals, hence the name, while I feel like crystals have more of a presence in the Glittering Cave, hence the name. But to make more sense of our chosen location, let's say that within the extended room Diancie would reside in, the blue and green crystals would turn to pink and there would be 100% encounter rate for Carbink. Volcanion was a tricky one, but I think I would put it in an area near the Victory Road in Kalos, specifically at the end of an upward path that followed after you go up this waterfall. Let me explain. We learned in this X and Omega Ruby Dex entry that it lives in mountains where humans do not tread. The Kalos region has been broken down into three areas: Coastal, Central, and Mountain Kalos. Given its Dex entry, I wanted to make sure that Volcanion would be somewhere in Mountain Kalos. While the Frost Cavern area is pretty mountainous, I don't think that it would make sense to have Volcanion reside in a snowy area. I was then going to consider making him reside in a mountainous area where the waterfalls in Korei Town come from, but I thought that would be too close to Zygarde's location, Terminus Cave, and I wanted to avoid putting legendaries and mythicals too close to each other, as I figured that would be unrealistic. The only other option seemed to be the Victory Road, as its outside area seemed pretty mountainous, and I figured that the best place to fit the location would be up this waterfall in the last outside area. Now, it could be argued that putting a mythical in a path extending from the Victory Road could be unrealistic. Well, to that I say not really, because it already officially happened. Shaman was one of the event mythicals that got a location. With the event activated, you would be able to lead through this opening in Sinnoh's Victory Road, walk through Route 224, go through a sea break path, and meet Shaman at the end of it. So I basically attempted to make meeting Volcanians similar to that approach. So about Magearna, it was actually available through a QR scanner in Hau'oli City. But the reason why I decided to include it in this list anyways is because to me, it always seemed like Magearna was lumped into Gen 7 just because Pokemon Z didn't happen. From its robotic body to its royal history, it has multiple qualities that would make it fit a lot more in Kalos than in Alola. So I wanted to give it an in-game location in Kalos, and I think it would be a basement in the Pokeball Factory. Now this could be seen as impractical due to how the movie Volcanion and the Mechanical Marvel revealed that it was from the Azoth Kingdom. But by the time we explore the Kalos region in the games, the kingdom, or at least its ruins, is nowhere to be found. This is likely due to the kingdom being of a past era, so I wanted to find a location where Magearna could be found in the modern day. So why the Pokeball Factory? Well, out of all locations in the region, I think the Pokeball Factory could link with Magearna the most. Its upper and lower body both resemble Pokeballs, not to mention its original color form, in which its lower body resembles a Pokeball even more, due to its red and white coloring. And the reason for having it in a basement is because the main area seems a little too crowded, and as for the rooms, I thought it would be weird for one of them to have the mythical and not the other. Now for Hoopa's location, it would actually be the Secret Shore in Oris. Yeah, but I have my reasons for this. I know Hoopa is a Gen 6 Pokemon, but I already placed 3 mythical locations in Kalos, and I think that's a good amount. Additionally, not only was Hoopa revealed around the Oris era, but it kind of has its own presence in those games. Notice how the portal or rings that you can find the post-game legendaries in resemble Hoopa rings. So since these rings are allowing legendaries to spawn in Hoenn, I would like to think that Hoopa is controlling all that while being somewhere secret in the same region. Finally, its wide dex entry states that it gathers things it likes and passes them through its loop to teleport them to a secret place. This led me to choose between the Secret Isle, Meadow, and Shore. I chose the Shore because it is the most distant location out of the 3 of them. Now it wasn't easy finding a location in Alola for Marshadow to be honest, but the best I can think of is Route 11, specifically in a small den that would open in this area. Let's consider a few things to see why I chose this. Its Ultra Moon Dex entry states that it sinks into the shadows of people and Pokemon, where it can understand their feelings and copy their capabilities. Route 11 is right under Mali City, which happens to be the second most populated residence in Alola, first being Hau'oli City. So I would imagine that there are a lot of shadows of people and Pokemon in this nearby city that Marshadow could dwell in. But its Sword Dex entry sheds more light on its fighting side. It states that by slipping into the shadows of a martial artist master and copying their movements, this Pokemon learned the ultimate techniques. Because of this, I want to choose an area where black belts could be found and battled. And in the Ultra games, Route 11 happens to have a few of them. Also, this is why I place this den somewhat near the black belts. Zero Aura's location would be in Mount Hakulani, and you would go down a path in that direction which would lead to a small den where it could be found. It has been said that Zero Aura lacks an electricity generating organ, and that it gathers and stores electricity from outside sources. I decided that this mountain would be an appropriate place for Zero Aura to gather electricity because of the presence of the Hakulani Observatory, where electricity is used in various ways. Though I figured that it would usually dwell in a den on the side of the road rather than somewhere out in the open. A choice any mythical would make due to their likely nature to conceal themselves. And finally, Zarude. Its location would be the Forest of Focus. In all honesty, I think a denser and more secluded forest would be appropriate. But I did choose what I believe to be the best of the 3 options that I had, which were all forests. The one I considered the least was the Slumbering Wild. While it would be perfect on a geographical level, Zacian and Zamazenta already make a presence there. We encountered them and learned about them in that forest. Then there was the Glimwood Tangle, which I was close to choosing because it seemed like a pretty dense and big forest. But as much as I like its emphasis on mushrooms, glowing lights, and fairy Pokemon, I think it creates a theme that Zarude doesn't really fit in. So that left me with the Forest of Focus, and while it seemed a little small compared to the other 2, it also seemed like the most normal one. I think it is the most fitting forest in Galar for Zarude. I wonder if Gen 9's Mythicals would be obtainable in-game or through events, but for now, what are your thoughts? Do you agree with the locations I picked, or would you make different choices, or slight modifications? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to tackle that like button and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching, and until next time, see ya.